Coming up, a company making maps accessible.
You're listening to Double Time, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Hey, Shaun Preece, how are you doing today?
I am great, thank you, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to our chat later with Brandon Biggs and Chris Toth from XR Navigation. They're going to be talking about a product called Audiom, or as I like to call it, and you'll understand why later, Audiom, making maps accessible through audio on your computer on a web browser. It's a very interesting idea. Yeah, I know.
Hi.
It's like Google Street View.
Yes.
Is made accessible. It's a really clever idea.
I'm interested myself. I wasn't here for this one, so yeah, very good.
Yeah.
I just got accepted for the Navis app beta.
Oh, okay. What's that?
Which sounds very interesting. Using the conversational side of AI, where you can talk to Copilot or Gemini, using that interface, but for navigation. So, hey, take me to KFC, and it will, give you the route. And it seems very interesting. So I'm going to test that one out. It came out on the 1st of June, the beta. As I said, I got accepted for the beta test. So I'm very intrigued by that too. Navigation, it's the future. Who knew?
Well, I mean, that kind of conversational approach to navigation makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's kind of what you want. I mean, ideally, I would love that inside my bus apps or my train apps, where I could just say, when's the next train? Or I'm traveling later today. What are the options when it comes to buses home or, whatever?
Yeah.
And it would just surface that information. There's no reason why it can't. But we're still kind of in that legacy approach. It feels weird to say legacy, but, we're still in that kind of old school approach, if you like, of, okay, we've got a list of options and we've got to swipe through. I have to say, though, I've been using MoovIt quite a lot actually recently for bus travel and really liking it. They've made a lot of improvements to MoovIt. I remember we did an interview with the guys at MoovIt.
Did we?
Way back at not way back when we started on YouTube. It was one of the episodes we did just for YouTube. And
I like to move it.
I like to move it, and I especially like to move it with MoovIt. You can have that. But yes, yeah.
Wow.
I'm inside that movie. What was that movie again?
Madagascar.
That's the one. Well
there
done.
There you go. With King
Abdul
Louis.
That one.
Yeah. Anyway, it was very good.
I can't remember anything about it. I just remember they like to move it bit. That's the only thing I remember about it.
Do you know what it is about these apps, though, usually? Is I just don't understand public transport enough. I just don't. What do you mean? I just don't.
Shaun Preece, what do you mean
by this?
I've
never understood how buses work.
Buses.
I
what are you talking about?
I still don't know how many days are in any month, right? I'm 52 years old.
You got to do the thing.
No, yes.
30 days has September, April, June, and November.
Yeah, but that doesn't even work. It doesn't rhyme, right? It could be 30 days has October, September, January, and February. It doesn't make any sense. You got to remember it anyway. And I don't do the knuckles thing. I don't understand. And I don't understand buses. Like, if I get a train, right? Oh, I'm going to, I don't know.
Hang on. You understand the concept of a bus, right? You understand that.
No, I get it's got wheels.
It's a gigantic vehicle which contains seats and, it has wheels that direct it on a path determined by a driver.
Hello, I need to go to Tottenham or something. Oh, yeah, you want to get the bus that goes to, I don't know, St. Paul's Cathedral. I don't understand. Like, how are you meant to know where it stops on the way? It's confusing to me. I'm getting the train to Birmingham. Oh, you need the Leeds train then. Do I? Is that how that works? How does that work? I don't understand. Thank you.
Okay. Well, clearly you haven't been out much. I will say, though, I do feel the same way about trams. Trams are terrifying to me because I just cannot understand when I am in
exactly
Manchester.
The same. Yes.
When I'm in Manchester, and I know you don't stay too far away from a tram stop, and that is always an option. I think I did it once, but I had assistance in our good friend Jane, lose all the bags, Jane.
Yeah.
And
bag loser Jane. Yeah.
That's right, yes.
Yep.
Just be careful because, she's still friends with me and we still need her occasionally. And I feel that joke's wearing thin, if I'm honest. Especially on that 11-hour flight where we mentioned it at least 11,000 times.
Oh, dear. Especially when listeners come up and mention it.
Well, that's even worse, right? You're the woman that loses all the bags. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I had Jane with me that day, so at least I could find the tram. But the problem is, the trams have their own tram stops, which are generally in the middle of a road. And I can never work out. It's the same in Edinburgh. In Scotland, you have these trams. I have never been on one, except with a friend who obviously knew where to go to get the tram. I could never figure out where these things stop. So I kind of get where you're coming from a tram perspective. Buses are similar. Right? I mean, it's the same. If you don't know the area, I've been to London, England many, many times. I have never used buses there because I just don't understand where I would get one. And this is often the challenge, right? People say use public transport. It's great. But the problem is that you're walking down a road where there might be 10 bus stops.
Yeah.
It's different where I live. Where I live, there's one bus stop. There's one bus. Well, there's two buses now, actually. We've upgraded. So we've got two buses now. And it's a little bit easier because, you can't really get it wrong, right? I mean, it's going to be one or the other. Yeah. But, when you're in a big city, it's a nightmare. Now, weirdly, the one place I found quite enjoyable to get a bus was Toronto.
Oh,
don't know why. I will say, I nearly got killed. I nearly got killed on the very first day in Toronto. I'd landed, not in a bus, in a plane, yes. And I had gone to my hotel, and I came out of the hotel to cross. I was told you got to cross the street to get the bus, and so I said, okay, that's fine. So I was about to cross the road. I stepped off the curb. I turned right, checked where I was going. Was just about to step off the curb, foot off the curb, and I heard, and then as this bus went careering past from my left, because of course, I'm in Canada, and the traffic comes from the opposite direction.
Yes.
And so a bus nearly, ironically, the very thing I was trying to hail, the very saviour of my day, nearly killed me.
I'm sorry, Canadians. That's just wrong.
Yeah. Good try. But
we love you and everything, but come on, get that
Bus
right.
0, Stephen 1, I think you'll find.
But you know what? These apps, though, they are handy. I've got to say, I do love the various train ones I've got. I can't even remember the name of one because I've got various
loads of them
train apps on there. And there's, if you do get into a station, and most of them have some sort of complication if you're wearing the Apple Watch or something on the home screen on the iPhone, which will say, take me home. And it will immediately look up the train and what platform it's on. Because trying to find a platform number, any other way is just basically a nightmare. Trying to find someone who can help you is hard work. So, yeah, very handy. These apps, as with most apps, right? You need a few of them to get the job done.
Yeah.
But where would we be without them?
But it's trying to extrapolate that information you need at the moment. So, the platform information, again, with the AI approach of just being able to say, what platform's the train to Glasgow on? And it'll just say, it's platform 7. Okay, great, that's it. That's all I need to know. Instead of having to go into the app and then search through and then, because the information may be there visually. It'll be right there visually on the Apple Watch or on the phone app or whatever, but it's not that easy to get to.
It's not only that, it's trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, because you'll sometimes get a group of information in one run, right? So when you go to an element on the screen, you'll swipe right onto this element. And it might contain the time, it might contain as it does on MoovIt, it'll contain all the information about when the bus arrives, it'll tell you where, all sort of information about the bus in that one message.
Yeah.
You got to wait till the very end.
Swipe through a few times.
Well, no, but even you sometimes have to wait on the one element to get to the very bit of information you're looking for. One thing I'll say about MoovIt, though, that I really like is there's a live arrival kind of information you can get. I don't know if you have to pay for this. I certainly don't pay for it, so I guess you don't. But there certainly is a pro version of MoovIt which gives you, I think, more information. But you can certainly get this live update information. And I tried it the other day. I thought it was really cool. Just before the buses are about to arrive, it will actually tell you your bus is about a minute away. And I love that. You get that notification that actually tells you that, which I think is brilliant. I love that kind of thing.
I'll stick with Uber, thanks.
Yeah, well, if it works for you.
Yes, and it does. Mostly.
I don't know. I find Uber app it's kind of lost a little bit of accessibility for me.
What?
I don't know what's going on. Well, I remember when I was in Amsterdam. I like to travel, as you know.
Listen to him.
No, I loved it because it would tell me lots of information about, where I was. It would tell me how far away I was from the destination. It would tell me what, side to get out the car. Even, or if I was getting out the car on the right side, beware of cyclists. It's Amsterdam. Of course I'm going to be aware of cyclists. But, the point is it was giving me that information. When the car was arriving, it was counting down in my ears, 300 yards, 200 yards, 100 yards. And I thought, that's amazing. I don't get that anymore. I don't get any of that information.
Sorry, what Uber app have you got? That's the
what I was getting.
Uber app.
I was getting that for a long time. I got it pretty much anywhere I was going.
Really?
But now I don't get any of that. I don't know if it was some kind of live activity that was on the home screen of the phone, and they've changed it and they don't have that anymore.
Maybe.
But the information just doesn't seem to be quite as... I mean, it may well be there visually, but it's not responding to it very well. It's not the screen reader's not picking up on that.
The only problem I ever have with Uber, I think it's very accessible. The only problem I ever have is picking the pickup point. Because you'll say where you want. I'm going here, so destination, and I'm here at the minute. Pick me up here, but it's almost where the car is going to stop, and it's never the same for me. Where I'm actually being picked up from, it'll say a different street. Oh, yeah, that's around the back of this building. Well, that's no good to me. I'll never find it. I don't know where that street is. So I usually, if I'm somewhere, I'll get someone like a receptionist. I'll just say, can you just, pick the destination, the pickup point for me?
I'm reaching into my bag because I think I've got it here. But I spent £2.
Oh.
No, £2. So it was like $3. I don't know.
That's $3.50 Canadian dollars.
Let's go with that. I spent a tiny amount of cash on this little thing. It is a yellow taxi card symbol.
Oh.
Right? I talked about this before.
Just stop you there. No.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do with a taxi. So I'm trying to stop it right there.
No.
So this has the word taxi written in huge black letters on a yellow background. It's got a little cutout so you know which way to hold it up. So cheap. So simple, just plastic, right? I have this everywhere I go. Best $3.50 Canadian I've ever spent in my life.
Really? I know. Okay.
I'm not saying so much for Uber, right? Because it would actually go if you get one that said Uber on it. But no, the thing that's good about this is if you are in a situation where, like you're saying, you can't get an Uber because you can't figure out where it's going to pick you up, you stand on a main road with this, you're going to get a taxi. You're going to get one. And the amount of taxi drivers that have said to me, I'm so glad you've got that, because that, if I'm standing, and oftentimes I don't know where I'm standing. I remember in London once I was standing on a bus stop, putting my hand out. Now, of course, a taxi's not going to stop for that because he thinks I want a bus.
Thinks you're waving. Yeah.
And just waving at random people. Yeah. But if I'm holding this...
That's assuming you're in a city or town where there are, I believe they're called Hackney taxis or cabs that do just
taxis,
drive around.
Some people call them.
No. That's very rare. That's a London thing, isn't it?
Talking about every city has some kind of taxi.
I've never seen one where you can just hail it.
All right, in the Amazon rainforest, perhaps this might be useless.
Oh,
okay,
I'm sorry.
I understand that.
Well, as you're a globetrotter,
I don't know what the alternative. I think if I'm in the Amazon rainforest, I've got bigger problems.
Right there. Thank you very much.
Oh, Spice Girls reference. I love it. I love these modern references we're doing on the show today.
We had a conversation, I can't remember if it was off air or on air, about people thinking, about us caring what people think, using tools, using a cane or whatever, and what people think of us, and what is the line there. I don't care anymore. If it makes my life easier, I don't care. There is an exception to that.
Well, holding up big signs that say taxi on them.
You know what? I could do that. My exception is, those signs where you actually put it over your neck and I need help or whatever it is.
But again, I think it depends who the person is.
That's me, though, right? Because how many times I know I have. I've been in situations where I felt completely lost and just unable to do anything. I'm sure I would have put one on then, but right now I'm thinking that is a step too far for me, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm not walking around with a sign around my neck saying I need help. I'm holding up a sign that says taxi. I'm making it very clear what it is I want.
No, I'm not. I know, but
I keep showing it to the camera. I don't know why. If you're on YouTube, hello everybody. I want a taxi. Can you see?
Yeah, taxi will pull up there.
Beep, beep.
Yes, but you do see them, right? They are available signs that you put around your neck.
I don't think I've ever seen that, but I don't.
I have.
I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm just saying.
You are.
I'm not saying you're a liar.
You're holding
I will
up
call
that
you a liar at some
card.
point, but not. I didn't buy that one. Only got taxi or ICSAT if hold upside down, which is means something totally different.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know how we got there. Anyway, yes, XR navigation, was it?
Well, yeah, I'm going to talk about the Uber thing with the XR navigation guys. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. This is total off topic here, but
Wow.
I think I've completely upset and confused my iPhone. I don't think my phone has. You know, I often talk to you about how I dislike identity politics. Well, my phone is currently lacking an identity, and I feel bad.
What have you done?
Well, I've added a lot of voices to the rotor, and I keep changing the voice every so often, and to the point where the other day, my phone spoke in 3 different voices on the one line of text. It was completely confused. I don't think my phone knows what I'm asking it to do anymore. But I've settled on a new voice. Can you guess what voice I'm now using that you might surprise you? And
No.
by the way, it's not Daniel.
Fiona.
A Scottish lady. No,
Yes.
I'm not using Fiona. I don't like Fiona.
Ava.
No, that's too obvious.
Tom.
I've got Tom in the list, but no, I only keep him for certain occasions. I don't know what that means.
Australian, isn't he, Tom?
Tom? No, Tom's American.
Oh, right. What's the Australian one? Karen?
Oh, isn't it? There's Karen and Lee. I can't
Lee.
believe I know this, but yes. This is a
We
really
know 'em all.
weird quiz.
Alex. Name all the voiceover voices.
Yeah, I know. You're getting close. You're getting close because it's very similar to Alex in the breathiness.
Oh. No, that's it. I'm
British Alex.
What?
What's British Alex?
British Alex.
Come on, have a think.
I don't know.
I
Paul.
love this game.
Barry.
Paul? Who's Paul?
Derek.
Oh,
I
Derek.
don't know. I'm just making it
Dave.
up.
No, Oliver.
Oliver. I don't know Oliver.
You know, hang on. Right, hang on. I'll play. Is this on?
Oh, this is... It always goes well.
You hear this?
No.
Hang on.
WhatsApp, 4:57 p.m.
Oh, I see what you mean. That is a bit Alexy.
And that's not the time. Might be.
Oh, that's very cool.
It is kind of Alex, yeah. It's like a British Alex, but his breathiness is a little bit irritating. But I really like his voice. I think it's very full-bodied. Feels like a wine I'm describing now. Full-bodied, full of fruit. Yeah, no, it's lovely. I really like Oliver. Everything is now Oliver through my computers.
Can I just say, for 5 minutes, and then you'll change it again. We all get
I know,
sick
but
of the
I've got
voices.
like 16 voices. Zoe was the one I was going with for a while. See, what happens is I don't know if you do this. In fact, I'm almost certain you don't do this, but I think a lot of our double tappers do this. You hear a voice on someone else's phone, and you think, I like that voice. What's that voice? And then you find out what the voice is, and you change yours, and I don't like that voice. And so you change it to something else. Is that just me, or is that everyone else?
No, that's just you. Is it wrong to clone your voice and use that for voiceover?
That is absolutely ridiculous. You're a total narcissist.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but kind
I
of
don't want to hear my voice. I hear enough of my voice. I don't need to hear any more of it, and certainly nobody else does.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
I said to my wife, I said, do you want my voice as the
lovely.
voiceover on your phone? She said, no.
Okay.
Fine.
Very good. You do that in personal voice, by the way, if you're interested.
Yeah. I haven't. Have you done that? Because I know that they're changing, aren't they? They're changing personal voice.
I'm
after-
waiting till iOS 19 where they change it, where you don't have to read 150 phrases in order to clone your voice. It's something like 10
15
or 15.
or 10. Yeah. You
so-
mean iOS 26?
Yeah. Now, I actually think this is a great idea.
I guess it's rubbish.
What are you talking about? It's
This
great.
isn't going to happen. This is just, you know what? This is fake news that Apple has thrown out there. This is the meat that they've chucked the technology journalist lions.
Where's this going? Yes.
I don't know, just basically to avoid
Stop
any
talking about
conversation.
Apple Intelligence.
Exactly, just to avoid any conversation about Apple Intelligence. Hey, did you? The bigger news than that? Okay, we'll get to your thing in a minute. We'll talk about your thing first. iOS 26, a lot of nonsense, not going to happen there.
Okay, so the rumor is they're going to ditch the current naming plan of OSs and use the year instead. So iOS 2026 or 26. I know, I think it makes sense. And the iPhones, I think, would go the same way, even better. Although it does date it, doesn't it? You know, by next year it's out of date and people can, yeah, no, it's a bad idea. It's never going to happen.
What happens
Apple
in the year
wouldn't do it.
2100?
Pardon?
What happens in the year 2100?
Oh, that would be the
iOS 100.
the iPhone 00. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
It's a terrible idea.
Change my mind.
Do you want me to change your mind?
No. Sorry, I've changed my mind.
Oh, I see, right.
What was your other topic? Carry on. Wow.
What was my other? Oh yeah, so
The other big news
I love
story.
the planning that goes into this program.
I know.
You know? Honestly, if I was, someone said to me the other day, they said, it's really interesting you've got this kind of new private members-only podcast thing going on. They said, it's surprising you haven't, charged people for it, because you could charge people and they would pay you money. And I said, I didn't want to do that. I said, also, there's part of me, I say part of me, let's just say part of the production team here at Double Tap who said, let's not give Stephen any more rope where he can hang himself. If he thinks no one else can hear this and he's never going to get cancelled for it, because the things that get said, how much money would you want to pay to hear what I say off air? That's the question, right? How much would you be willing to pay for that content? I think you'd...
Are we starting a Kickstarter now? What's going on? Are we crowdfunding?
$1,000 Canadian an episode. There you go.
Stop it. The big... I'll do it if you want. The big news story is... I'm actually guessing what you're going to talk about.
Go on then.
Is it the rumour that there is going to be very little, if any, news about Apple Intelligence at the upcoming WWDC?
Well, it goes further than that, actually, because so there's a podcast that gets recorded every year at WWDC. It's called The Talk Show. It's hosted by John Gruber, who's a well-known YouTuber and journalist and podcaster. And he only does this one show, I think, a year at WWDC. And every single year... pretty much every year, I think, he's always had the executives from Apple come along. He gets big names like Craig Federighi and people who are the big names at Apple, the top team. And they come on the show and they'll sit and they'll talk with them. And it's, fairly candid, but you can tell there's a little bit of, or a lot of lawyers aiming, sniper rifles at, John Gruber to make sure it doesn't go off the
Can I just say, for legal reasons, they're not doing that, but yes, they are very guarded. Wow.
Yeah, well, you never know, right?
We're
Who knows?
talking about lawyers here. Be careful. Carry on.
Well, I'm not. Well, lawyers, sniper lawyers. That's what I'm calling them.
Stop it.
That's actually quite a cool idea. Someone should do a show on that. Sniper lawyers.
Please.
I'd watch that.
Please move on.
But anyway, so I've had way too much coffee this morning. I tell you, way too much, especially at 4:58 p.m.
Yes.
So anyway, So
John Gruber.
John Gruber always has these execs on, and this year, no execs going on the show. No one going on the show from Apple this time round.
What are you reading from that news?
I think it's a little bit of payback because John Gruber has apparently not been very kind about Apple Intelligence.
Okay.
I have to say, neither have we.
Yeah, we're in trouble then. Yeah, but nobody has, have they?
I think there's a few people. There's always the apologists who will happily, go along with it and say that everything's going to be great. I do see them online. There's plenty of people who think that it's all going to be great in the future. Just keep waiting. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be great.
Well, no, I kind of believe that as well, but I don't know if they've got the luxury of time anymore without losing market share.
I think that's exactly the problem. So John Gruber's been commenting on this, and there's talk of it being a little bit of payback for him, being so negative about Apple. I think it's frankly a little bit pathetic if that's true, because honestly, it's very hard to look at the last year of Apple and, just look at the whole year, in particular around Apple Intelligence, right? I mean, we can look at other areas as well. We could talk about bugs and, and I think, unfortunately, this Apple Intelligence story kind of overtakes everything because that was the big promise for the new phones. That was the reason, people should go out and buy them. And it's never really materialized. And I think, John Gruber's commented on it. We've commented on it plenty of times. Mm-hmm. As a result, he's not getting the guests. I think it says that Apple are either paying back on that or, and possibly both, they might be running scared. I don't think they want to face up to the questions that are going to come out. And there would have to be questions because it wouldn't be right for people, it's for someone to sit there and pretend that everything's fine or say, well, look, we can't talk about Apple Intelligence would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I go for that reason rather than just, because he slighted Apple. I think it's far more like...
I don't know. I mean,
maybe.
You got to watch how these things develop. Look, I will say this. I've interviewed people from Apple many times.
Yes.
And I will tell you that they are very guarded. It is the most guarded company in the world. They want to know what you're asking ahead of time. I will say this. I'll be 100% honest, right? Of all the times I've interviewed people from Apple, in particular Sarah Herlinger, who's wonderful, and I think Sarah's great. I think her team do an amazing job at accessibility. Every single time, and I'm not putting this on Sarah, but every single time we've interviewed Sarah, I've never been asked to give questions. And I know other journalists have. but we've never been asked to give questions in advance. And I don't like giving questions in advance. And most of the time, we all know what we're going to talk about anyway. We're going to talk about the new features, right? We're not interested in the gotchas, but we're interested in the features because no one else is talking about it. We're the only ones that will actually talk about these things. So we want to focus on it, and spending time with an Apple executive who can actually tell us about them, I think that's great. So that's why we love having Sarah on. This year was the first time Apple wanted questions from us. And I said to them, look, but guys, you know how it goes with it. Yeah, can we get questions? And I thought that was really interesting. And I think it was because they were terrified we were going to go down the route of, let's talk about Apple Intelligence. Now, the reality is, I'm in an interview with someone. I can ask the question. Now, if that person walks off in the middle of the interview, it doesn't look good for them, doesn't look good for me, or I guess, although I don't know if it maybe looks worse for them. But, I didn't ask those questions, primarily because, I don't think that's fair to put on Sarah Erlinger. I don't think those questions are fair to put to her. And actually, I would say the most intelligent parts of Apple are coming out of the Apple accessibility team, I think. I mean, it's the most use of intelligence I've seen, if you want to look at it, if I'm being brutally honest. I think it's the most interesting bits. I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out over the next year with the Braille access and what they're doing in Vision Pro, what they've done with LiDAR in the past, how they've really used all this hardware.
With personal voice. I mean, the processing time's gone from overnight to a couple of minutes.
So I'd say that accessibility is actually using intelligence the best way. It's the bigger operating system that's at fault here. And I think it's, from what we've read, and of course we'll never know the true story for a long time, but what it feels like is happening is there's been huge mismanagement over at Apple of this project team. That has changed. The team has now, got a new leader, new people involved. The focus is now get this right. And
of course, it's got to.
And of course that's going to be the case. The problem, as you say, do they have enough time before market share starts to slip? They've got Google biting at their heels. They have OpenAI teasing all kinds of stuff. There was an interview in the Financial Times with Johnny Ive, of course, former Apple design chief, and Steve Jobs' wife, Lauren Powell Jobs, talking about the future of technology, talking about humanity deserving better. I mean, I find this really interesting, this article. Now, it's behind a paywall, and, that involves spending money, and I'm giving up on spending money for a bit.
Yeah, you don't find it that interesting, then?
No, well, I'm happy to read 9 to 5 Mac's take on it, put it that way.
Just a summary all day.
Yeah, summary will be fine. But, I did find it interesting because, look, as far as I understand from the article, Johnny Ive is obviously not talking directly about whatever product is coming down the line with this OpenAI ChatGPT thing that's coming. We talked about this recently, of course, that company that Johnny Ive owns has been bought by OpenAI. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens down the line with that. But, that means that OpenAI are now biting at the heels and in a different way. The fact that in the interview, Lauren Powell Jobs talks about the fact that technology has now created a world where young people, and she cites young girls, and young people generally, as living with huge levels of anxiety never seen before. Now, this is a real problem with iPhone addiction. I know you were someone who was very against the term iPhone addiction, or any addiction, frankly, on technology.
Yes.
But you cannot deny,
I can.
In a world where you walk down a street, people will literally walk into you because they are staring at their phones. I remember a terrible story.
But then don't tell it.
No, but it's a reality, right? It was a terrible story in the city
Someone
where I
hurt
used
themselves.
to live in Glasgow. She killed herself. She walked in front of a car, was hit by the car and was killed, staring at her phone.
Yes, and before that, it was staring at their newspaper. And before
that... Oh, come on. People weren't walking in front of cars reading newspapers.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, they were. People are always looking to distract themselves.
This is different.
I'm sorry.
This is different. I'm sorry. This is very different. You've talked about it as well. How many hours do you spend sitting in front of that Facebook video?
Yeah, and look, that's my point, right? Anyone just
What's
says,
your point?
Sitting in front of the screen is a terrible, terrible thing. It's an evil. Not necessarily. It depends what you're doing on there. If you're just wasting your time, then absolutely.
No.
If you're learning something,
I'm not
it's
talking
an absolute
I'm
boom.
not talking about sitting in front of a screen. That's another issue. There are issues there as well.
Yes.
But I'm talking about the anxiety that young people, and maybe we don't get it. Maybe you and I don't quite get it because we're older. We didn't grow up with this technology. This wasn't something we grew up with. We didn't live with this.
I think social media and the ability to be either attacked or influenced through social media is far greater than it's ever been. And if you make a mistake and it's captured in any way, it lives on, and people can really struggle to live with that, especially when you're young. Absolutely, I get that.
It goes further than that, though. It goes much further than that.
I find
and we
this
don't get it.
whole
Look, if I'm not a
technology-
15-year-old girl, right? But I imagine
Yes.
in that world, your life is on that device. Everything.
Yes, as is mine.
I mean, there
as is
are people
yours.
who get upset and people are fired from jobs over an emoji, for God's sake. I mean, I don't even understand what emojis are.
That's got
And I
nothing
think-
to do with technology. That's just the way we've become in the world. It'll change, but technology isn't in itself a bad thing. Technology. Also, you could argue that technology has been a massive bonus, a positive for children as well.
I do not disagree with that, as I've said a million times on this program. And I do
Yeah.
not exaggerate, but I have said it a million times.
You had to get that joke.
I did that little joke in.
didn't
I
you?
did little dust that one.
Just to
I like that one.
diffuse the situation
I like
a
that
bit.
one.
Okay.
But I've
very
said
good.
it before. Two things can be true at the same time. And, you're right. Technology in and of itself, the device was now, and this is kind of the point that I think Johnny Ive is trying to make in the article, which is in a way kind of trying to defend any criticism towards him that he comes out and says humanity deserves better, technology is destroying everything. And so, well, hang on a minute, mate, you were the guy that developed the iPhone, right? So did you not develop or design this thing that we're all using, that we're all addicted to? But he's kind of backtracking from that, saying, well, this was never designed for that purpose. It was never designed to be addictive and designed for all that. It was designed to be nice in the hand and have contours and colours and beautifulness.
I'm sorry, that's just being obtuse. Of course, it was designed to be. It depends how you define addictive, right? It's desirable, whatever it is.
Well, from the beginning of remember the like button, people checking their likes,
Yeah,
and then there
of
was the
course.
notification bubbles that popped up. And I remember talking about this on the show ages ago. I remember saying to someone, wouldn't it be interesting to see where we are with all this technology in a few years? Because with blind people, I wondered if we were as impacted in the same way, because are we affected in the same way? Because we didn't see these likes and we didn't see these bubbles pop up, the things that apparently drive the dopamine fix and all the, the lights up the brain whenever you see a little bubble pop up with a notification or whatever. Because we don't see it, does it affect us the same way? I don't know. I think it.
We're
I think
still
it does.
social
I think
animals.
it does.
I just think back of the days as soon as a new communication app comes on that's accessible to us, we all jump on there. And we are on there a lot of the time. Man, I know people that were on 24/7 on Zello back in the day. There's something addictive about just being able to communicate. It's exciting.
Yes, it is addictive. Thank you. My point. So, anyway,
Damn it.
We're moving on.
Fell into your trap.
Up next, we're going to talk all about Accessible Maps, a very cool website you are going to want to check out. Stick around.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, I want to talk to you about a really cool website now from XR Navigation. Audiom.com. It's a very cool project, and we're going to talk to the guys behind it. Brandon Biggs is the CEO of XR Navigation, and Christopher Toth is the CTO over there at the company. Guys, great to have you here on Double Tap.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to have you both here and to learn all about XR Navigation. So my first question is obviously going to be to either one of you, whoever wants to take it. I think we'll ask the CEO, though. I think let's just throw the CEO under the bus right away. What is XR Navigation?
We've built the first digital map and spatial diagram tool that everyone can use. So it's a digital tool. You don't need any external devices. You can use it on your phone or computer or braille display, and you can access all the spatial information that's present in spatial diagrams or geographic maps using this application. So it's really helpful when you're trying to understand geographic maps. Say, for example, there's an election and you want to understand what did people mean by a red wave or a blue wave or something like that. We're from the US, so that's a terminology we have here, or the red wall or something like that. Or understanding how COVID statistics are spreading over the US, or most people know of geographic maps around navigation and understanding where buildings are in relationship to streets, or which direction you walk out of a bus when you get off of a bus at a bus stop. That's all information that our maps show. It's kind of like a tactile map, except rather than using your fingers to move around, you're using your arrow keys or touch screen or other controller to move around. We also show things like spatial diagrams, like skeletons, biological diagrams. Say, for example, you're dissecting a rat in biology class, we can show those diagrams as well. We also do things like circuit boards and astronomical diagrams.
Wow. Okay. So we're talking here about a computer program, right? That's allowing you to do all this, Christopher. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so it's really awesome because it runs in your web browser. So like Brandon said, it'll work on your phone or on a computer or really anywhere you want to use it.
Talk me through the applications here, because obviously I can totally understand how in school and in university and even in certain workplaces and as you mentioned, around political events like elections, this would all make total sense. I, as a person who might want to be traveling into town tomorrow and heading out for lunch with a friend, and I'm going to meet them and I'm going to be stepping off that bus and wondering where to go meet them, can I use your product to help me find my way, to help me understand the environment around me?
So one of the things that I think is coolest about our project is kind of as a proof of concept and to really understand how everything would work well for mapping, we set this up to work with this project called OpenStreetMap, which is essentially, think of it like Wikipedia for maps. It's this giant worldwide map that anyone can contribute to and that is incredible and it's very accurate. So this OpenStreetMap project, we directly work with that. You can go to our website right now, audiom.net, and enter your address or the address of, say, the restaurant you wanted to go to or anything else. And it will pull that information from OpenStreetMap, and you can walk around and explore your neighborhood or downtown or anything you want to really explore and understand exactly the spatial relationships between buildings and streets and bus stops and all the other minutiae of daily life.
Exactly how it fits into your navigation process is this is an orientation tool. So there are two types of tools, orientation and mobility. Orientation is how you understand the space before you actually go, and mobility is how you actually get from point A to point B. We only really do the orientation, although we do have a way where you can share your GPS location with your map and it pulls up a pin that says you're here, you are here, and then you can jump back to that location as you're walking with your phone. So we do have that functionality. But our ultimate goal is that we work with institutions such as government agencies, Google Maps, Apple Maps, Esri, all these different map companies to embed into their products, because we don't want to replace the entire infrastructure behind a geographic information system. We are really just a map viewer that is the really hard part that nobody's really solved before. And so we're really focusing on that specific piece that, we can communicate this spatial information that all these other tools have built a lot of infrastructure around, and we can work with those tools. So one thing that we need people to do is ask for these tools to be made usable.
To rewind this a little bit, I think you've hit on this, which is a really important point. For many of us in the blind community, navigating a map is and has been almost impossible. And that really was the problem you were setting out to solve.
Exactly. So just to kind of put this into perspective, only about 17.5% of blind people have ever viewed a map as a blind person. So typically there are tactile maps, and only 17.5% have ever viewed a tactile map. Within that 17.5%, blind people typically only view less than one map a year. Contrast that with able-bodied people who view more than 300 maps a year. We're not even talking about spatial diagrams here. We're just talking about maps. Yeah. And so there's this enormous gap in literacy and data access that we're trying to close.
The one I always think about is when I book an Uber. And it will say, meet at X place. And I think, okay, where is that? Now, obviously, there's a point on a map, and I can't find it. I just cannot work out where it is. I have to call the driver. I have to ask someone else. this is the problem, right? When you are presented with a map, if the map isn't accessible, and more often than not, if it is, it might be accessible in the sense I can get street names from it, but I don't understand where they are in relation to me or the rest of the world at that moment.
Exactly. And what some of the challenges that we have is that existing digital accessibility practice focus on either simple text descriptions, turn-by-turn directions, tables, or what are called nearby address searches, where you basically enter an address and it comes up with a list of addresses that are ranked in distance from your entered location. And those are we can theoretically demonstrate not geographic maps.
I want to discover a bit more about how this works in practice for someone like myself, because what I'm getting from you is that this is something which is really about, as we all do as blind people, preparing for our journey. So getting ahead of the game before we get there, understanding when I step off the bus where to go to get to the entrance to that particular restaurant, even just find the restaurant in and of itself. Am I getting that right?
Exactly. It's all about data analytics.
Really understanding that physical environment, the angles, the relationships. So how this works is it's with 3D audio. So as soon as you turn on the map, you can kind of hop in there and you can be placed into a location and you can press a button and suddenly all the things around you, like the bus stops will sound like buses and the streets will sound like streets. And you'll be able to kind of pick up exactly where things are, and they're all sort of placed in a relative way so that all the sounds really make sense and mirror what you will hear once you're actually there. Not only that, but you're walking around roughly 1 meter per step, which is also going to be roughly your own step size. So you can get a rough idea of, how many steps is it between here and there.
Wow. You can also adjust that step size. So say, for example, I'm wanting to check out, kind of an overarching view of an area. I can change my step size to be whatever I want it to be, like 10 meters or 50 meters each step. And then we also do larger scale maps as well of things like the US or the globe. And we've shown things like buoy, locations showing sea level rise, or like I mentioned, COVID statistics, or we did the eclipse map a little while back, or election result maps, that kind of thing as well. But for navigation purposes, it's exactly what Chris said. It's you're moving this little character around the map that's kind of representing you, and you can rotate, you can move one step at a time. You can jump to particular locations, you can get directions to locations, all that kind of stuff.
So a lot of our listeners might be familiar here with audio games and playing audio games and a lot of the tropes that audio games have developed. And so what we've really done here is taken a lot of that same technology and a lot of those same tropes that audio games have and ported it to the web and made it work with real world data.
But no scary zombies around the corner.
Not yet.
You can build that in. That could be cool.
We've been thinking about some kind of like a skin, like a game skin. It was definitely been on the roadmap for a while.
Yeah, I mean that's Grand Theft Auto, isn't it? It's just to get a great map and you get some scary things going on, and well, we'll maybe not go into any more detail than that on a family show. But yeah, I mean that sounds pretty cool. I love this idea because I love the fact that it's on the computer, and I can understand why some people might say, well, why is that a good thing? But actually, the way I'm thinking about it is because when I first learned about your company, I thought, okay, if this is tactile, if this is something I have to have in front of me, how am I going to get access to that? And that's another thing you've managed to get past. Because for most people, you're going to have a computer and a way to navigate this. Whereas if you were asking everyone to print this out or go and buy tactile materials, first off, how is that going to stay in date for as long as it does? How are you going to keep that updated? That would have been a nightmare. And that's been the case for many of us. Like you're saying, Brandon, many of us have experienced tactile maps, and that's the closest we've gotten to understanding our area.
Yeah, I mean, only 17.5% of blind people have ever experienced a tactile map, so that's the minority. But yeah, I'm one of the people who was selected to be one of the American Printing House of the Blind's Monarch beta testers or evaluators, and so I'm going to be receiving a Monarch on the 30th. And we're definitely looking into how we can integrate with that as well. So our big thing is digital. We need access to digital dynamic maps. And really the only way that most people have to access digital dynamic information is through their computer or their phone. And they don't necessarily have something like the Monarch, which is a full-page Braille display. But that is not going to change, hopefully, in the near future. And we want to be able to support that if people are tactile learners, because not everybody learns through audio. But right now, it's something that everyone can go using their phone or computer and listen to or use on their, on their own personal device. And that's really important for us.
We've all had the experience of going to a restaurant or something and getting a Braille menu, and that Braille menu is out of date, not to mention all the other issues with Braille menus. And so we're really trying to avoid that really needing a physical artifact problem and just hop on directly on any digital device, and there you go.
So how did this all come about? How did you two meet? How did this come to be?
So I got my master's degree in inclusive design from the Ontario College of Art and Design University. And when I started there, I was challenged with creating different types of data visualizations in a non-visual format. So we started with things like graphs, pie charts, bar charts, line charts. Those are all pretty easy. It was fairly straightforward to create those in audio. But then my advisor said, can you make the Napoleon's March of 1812, which is a very famous infographic that kind of defined the whole field of infographics. And that is basically a graph plus a map. And that really inspired my interest in this, because I said, there's nothing really to view maps in an auditory way, except we view maps all the time in games. And at the time I was playing quite a bit of audio games and was able to kind of make that connection. So blind people already solved this problem for themselves. It just hadn't really made it to the mainstream. So big companies like Esri and Google and Apple hadn't used any of these conventions that were really refined through the rigors of a commercial market in their interfaces. And so I thought that was something that needed to be investigated more. And so I started doing research with the Smith Catawell Eye Research Institute, and we got a grant, and I reached out to Chris asking if he knew anybody who would be interested in joining a team working on this, and he said, "Oh, me!" So he joined us joined me in 2020, and together we have really built out Audiom over the last 5 years, and now I'm in my last year of my PhD at Georgia Institute of Technology, researching the efficacy of non-visual digital maps with Audiom.
And I'm just a old blind hacker. I started accessible apps 15 years ago and built things like QRead and later the Twitter client Chicken Nugget. And
You're the man behind Chicken Nugget. I love Chicken Nugget.
And later I started working on building maps with Brandon because it's just a fascinating problem. And I find that, being a full stack developer, I have to deal with so many different things from, why is this obscure overpass server failing today to, how do I make this 3D audio sound perfect for really representing this river we're trying to represent? So it's always a fascinating list of stuff I can work on. And I'm
can't forget
getting a nice
you
technical
built NVDA
challenge.
remote.
Yes, that too.
Wow, we're an esteemed company here today. Goodness me. You realize after this, a lot of people will be, of course, checking out the whole Audiom tool, but I think there's going to be a lot of people emailing saying, what's happening with Chicken Nugget? Are you bringing it back? Of course, that may be more challenging these days, I would guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, Twitter shut down their API, and that's never going to happen.
Let's talk about the future of this, because you're saying you'd like this implemented by Apple and Google. Where are you with that? Is that something you're working on at the moment? Is that
we're in conversations with folks, but what we really need, and what we're hearing from government institutions, airports, stadiums, universities, and these big map tool or spatial diagram tool companies, is that nobody's asking for spatial information to be made usable to blind people. There are no people in these professions who are asking for, these tools to be accessible. And it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem. So blind people have trouble in their early schooling getting access to spatial diagrams. So they they avoid professions that require the use of spatial diagrams, so they don't ask for the spatial diagram tools to be made accessible. So blind people have trouble in their early schooling getting access to spatial diagrams, and so on and so forth. It's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken. And the way we can break that is by everybody going to audiom.net/email, finding or adding in contact information. We've got a list of a bunch of different companies in there, or state government institutions that have unusable digital maps, and asking for these maps to be made, or spatial diagrams to be made accessible. Some things that we've got on there are, state agencies like New York. We have a couple different New York state agencies on there that have a lot of geographic maps. IKEA, how do you put furniture together? Those are all spatial diagrams. Things like, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Esri, these are all contacts that we've got on there. And that is basically what we need people to do. Email, ask, and demand and advocate for change in this space. And it doesn't cost you anything. It just costs you a few minutes. You just go in there. We've pre-written emails. We really need people to go and ask for accessible maps and diagrams.
Like Brandon said, awareness is the biggest thing we're looking for. We need people to be aware that maps now can be made accessible. And it's just, you need to reach out and actually ask for a map. If you see a map, or don't see a map as the case may be, and then you need access to that map, you need to reach out to the person that makes that map and say, hey, the people that make these maps, or that make maps accessible, exists, and I can't access your map, so can you please fix that?
Yeah, see, this is a problem, and you've raised a big issue here, which is the buy-in from outside. We've spoken to many companies over the years, like Waymap, Good Maps, who are all doing their own version of mapping internally, or whatever it might be, and they all face the same issue, which is that they're just not getting the buy-in. They even go to, I remember someone from Good Maps telling me, we've gone to hospitals, and they say, well, why would people want this? And you think, this blows my mind. But then I suppose, look, we're all blind people here, right? We understand that the public attitudes are generally, well, blind people either get taken about or, just don't go anywhere. And this is the problem. You have to kind of get over that, don't we? We have to kind of push this narrative that, we want to be as capable as everyone else, but we kind of need a bit of help in the way. And you could help. You could help by making your shopping mall, your hospital, or your airport more accessible. Why would you not want customers? I always say that. Why do you not want people through your door spending money?
And it's not just blind people, to be honest. It's people with mobility impairments who can't use a mouse. It's people who are illiterate, don't know how to read. There's people who are low vision, not just blind. And our map really serves all these different people. And it ends up being around 12% of the population in the US and around 20% of the population globally who can't access geographic maps, which is in spatial diagrams, which is just a large number. And so that's definitely one of the selling points. But also, you've got the legal aspects as well. So there are maps on these websites, and it's not that other people aren't getting access to the spatial information. It's not that I want access. It's that everybody else is getting access. Can I have access as well? And it's part of the legal requirements that be the case. And the feedback that we're getting from these clients is, yes, we understand our maps are not usable, but there's so few people that actually use our website that are blind or aren't able to use this map that nobody's ever asked for it. But if we got one complaint, just one, it would go from a back burner issue to a high priority issue. So if you are worried that your voice will not count, because oftentimes when you're in an advocacy situation, you don't feel like your voice counts. Your voice does count in this case. One person can really change the course of how an institution, thinks about accessibility. It's just one person who needs to email oftentimes.
The one that really brings this home to me is recently, I'm not sure if y'all remember that there were those terrible wildfires in California. And there were evacuation maps, and how do you get out of there? And obviously, if you can't see that map, you can't see that, and that kind of thing really scares me. Where these resources that could be made accessible and wouldn't be, eventually leads to people suffering. And I think that we can really, especially like when it's so easy, like Brandon said, just one person to reach out. Just you right now today. Are there any maps that you don't have access to? We'll figure out who those maps are through and tell them about us. Yeah.
Well, I want people to go and do that. I'm sure they will. Remind us of the website and spell it out for us if you don't mind.
Audiom, audiom.net/email. So audiom.net/email. And if you can't find or you're having trouble finding a contact that isn't in our existing list, please reach out to me and I will get somebody from our team to find the contact information for that person, whether it's on LinkedIn or on their website or some other way. We're really good at finding contact info for who you should reach out to, and we can really help with that.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. And if I want to go exploring today, is it free to do?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. It's a Scotsman's favourite price. 0. I love it. And one final question I've got for you, Christopher. I know it's totally off topic, and now you've mentioned it, you brought it up. Well, actually, I think Brandon may have brought it up. But why was it called chicken nugget? This is a thing. This is a debate I've had with my friends. Why was it called chicken nugget?
I mean, it was a vaguely bird-related thing, right?
Vaguely bird-related thing. Okay, all right, I'll go with it.
Okay, let me tell you the real answer. So it was priced at $15, and it used to be that I had a real craving for a local restaurant here, or American restaurant, I should say, Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
And it just turned out that after credit card processing fees and everything else, the price of chicken nugget equaled just about the price of the chicken nugget meal at Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
Chris still eats a ton of Chick-fil-A. It's his favorite food.
Well, I'm partial to a chicken nugget myself, I won't lie. Guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us the story of audio. I'm going to call it Audiom because I'll remember it that way. As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, I will definitely go check that out. And thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with the project, guys.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
What an interesting conversation. Shaun, I know you probably have a lot you want to say on that, but we are out of time, unfortunately. So we will get your reaction on tomorrow's show. But yeah, really interesting. Can't wait to hear people's thoughts. Get in touch in all the usual ways. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter, the members-only podcast available right now. You can go and hear me, Shaun, Callum Stoneman, and Michael Babcock all talk about WWDC and more as we get ready for whatever Apple's going to launch on Monday. Do you think we'll talk to us again after all this?
No, I don't think they will. I'm so sorry, Apple.
Never mind. I've got my Samsung S25. Oh, hang on, they took it back. Actually, Apple, I love you. Come back. Come back.